Hello, everyone. My name is Joel Bruckenstein. I'm president of Technology Tools for Today, also known as T3. I'm here today with Chris Hastings, who is the president and CEO of Panoramix, and Kartik Srinivasan. Sorry if I screwed that up, Kartik. That's even harder than Bruckenstein.
All good.
Kartik is with Schwab, and we're going to be talking today about a number of topics that we think are, top of mind for advisors. So let's jump right in. Kartik, can we talk a little bit about the overall philosophy of Schwab's API program and also your vendor selection process?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Joel. First of all, it's great to be here. Thanks, Chris and Joel, for having me. Our API program, it's all about being open and inclusive to the fintech firms and advisors. So first of all, there's been a tremendous growth in the fintech space over the last decade, and advisors have more choice than ever. Joel, I remember actually the very first of the T3s, kind of walking the halls of T3, and there would just be a handful of technology firms. It was still, all the firms were there, but it was certainly very small. You could fit them all in a small room, right? But the most recent T3, it's just huge. There's so many different categories and so many firms that are just starting up every year. So there's more choice than ever for advisors. And so what we do is we take an open architecture approach when we integrate with the tools that our advisors are using. And so with our API, we really look at what are advisors using, and we prioritize to integrate with those fintech firms that are starting to get more and more usage. So while we integrate with all the established firms, bring them into our API program, we also work with a lot of emerging firms as well. So we're certainly not limiting ourselves to working with just the larger, more established firms. In fact, recently we completed a virtual technology forum where we had over 150 experts from 70 plus fintech firms that represent the Schwab and TD Ameritrade API program. So it really goes to show you the great ecosystem and fintech community that we're working with. Once we select a firm to work with, we do a lot of due diligence and contracting because it's very important to us to make sure that our client data is being safeguarded. I know we'll talk about cybersecurity later as well. And then once these firms, fintech firms, pass through our due diligence process and the contractual process, they get paired up and start working with our partner integration team, where we provide either a high-touch model if they need to, or if they want to be more self-service and build the APIs and integrations on their own, they can do that as well. The firms always have access to our team. If they ever run into issues or challenges, they can just submit a case and we'll be right there to help them. And once they're all done with development, they go through a pilot process where a few advisors use and test out the integration before it's made generally available to everyone. So I know that Panoramix is in the middle of their process of getting the APIs all built, and so we're excited to have them launch the integration soon with us.
Well, before we get to Chris, I just want to follow up on that a little. So, historically, I think the last time I looked, TD had something like 183 integration partners on VEO, and Schwab has always historically been a little more selective. Can you talk about, what your thought process is now going forward? Are you looking to be as open as TD was, as restrictive as Schwab has historically been, or somewhere in the middle?
Yeah, we're definitely looking to be open. Just for some perspective, what you mentioned with the 180 third-party products that TD Ameritrade integrates with, when we look at the comparable Schwab numbers, it's now up to 180. So we're really there neck and neck. There may not be 100% overlap in all the same firms, but we're very open as well. So we may have started many years ago being a little more selective, working with the firms that were more established and had a lot of advisors. But over the last couple of years, we've really opened it up, and we're working with anywhere there's advisor usage, we want to work with those fintech firms, and we've been opening up our integration and welcoming a lot of new participants to our programs.
Perfect. And Chris, you're going through that implementation experience right now. Can you talk a little bit about how it's been and provide some insights?
Absolutely. And Kartik, thanks for being here. And Joel, thank you again for hosting. Yeah, we're on the tail end. We just completed everything. Our pilot is wrapping up and we're going to go into general release in the next month. And we're doing the marketing and things. And so we're at a good time to actually talk about that. As a smaller vendor and a one that was not quite as established, is an interesting, an interesting perspective, because we came in and it was kind of, from my opinion early on, it was hard to kind of, break the barrier and get in and, be considered, credible with everybody else. And so we finally got in with the Schwab stuff. But what I realized in talking, and it's been a fantastic experience. And what I thought at first was kind of like a sort of a select few sort of thing. It wasn't really that. It was that they work with you far more than any other vendor or any other custodian ever has. I mean, we got assigned a team and we met every week and they went through step by step. They did code reviews. The amount of work they do to get you onto their APIs is way, way, way above and beyond what any of the other custodians did. So it wasn't so much that they were saying, oh, you're not really viable. They have to schedule it because they really put the time in. It's really been a great experience getting us through. At the time when we first did it, I thought, well, this seems a little lengthy. I don't know that we need that much time to really get this stuff implemented, but it really has been fantastic because we have, the eye of people at Schwab, and they really have got us where we need to go so that, it's going to be, fully functioning right out of the gate versus, kind of a back and forth sort of thing. So been a great experience.
Excellent. So let's now turn to one of the hottest topics, not just in our industry, but all industries, cybersecurity. Everybody that I talk to is rightly concerned about some of the breaches that have happened at some of the biggest companies in the world lately. And certainly advisors, because that's where the money is, and Schwab, that's where the money is, are rightly concerned going forward. So Kartik, can you talk a little bit just generally about the Schwab approach, and also give us a little perspective on the Schwab approach with regard to third-party integration?
Yeah, certainly. Cybersecurity, this is a very important topic. In fact, I think we could do a whole entire podcast on just this topic, and I'm sure there's a lot of outside podcasts who've done this as well. But, at Schwab, we offer quite a lot for advisors related to cybersecurity. We offer what's called a Cybersecurity Resource Center, which is a website for all things cyber related for advisors. So within Schwab Advisor Center, there's a link for them to go into the Cybersecurity Resource Center. Within this resource center, there are numerous materials that we help to help advisors get ready and prepared for cybersecurity. It includes things like an assessment and action plan, along with a reference guide. It's all based on the NIST cybersecurity framework. We have a PowerPoint deck template that's really built for advisory firms to use for their own employee education, their staff training, which tells them all about the risks of cybersecurity and why it's important to safeguard data and what are the different challenges or problems they could run into. A similar deck can also be white labeled and made available for advisors to use with their end clients to educate the end clients and raise awareness of the importance of cybersecurity and some of the risks, especially protecting senior and vulnerable investors. There's also a lot of other PDF guides and templates covering topics like cybersecurity insurance, creating a hardware and software inventory plan, conducting vendor due diligence. So of course, while we offer choice for advisors to pick and choose the third parties they need to, it's on the advisors really at the end of the day, because it's their independent business. They're the ones paying the license fees. So they need to do the vendor due diligence. We do the diligence on our side when they come into the API process, but we also recommend advisors do their own due diligence process. And so we provide guides and resources for them. We've also built out, this is newer, it's called a virtual practice management. Now that we're in this world, 1 year on in this virtual world, we've created this virtual practice management, which is on-demand multimedia resources and guides for firms across various topics. And cybersecurity actually happened to be one of the first topics because of its importance and interest. And so we have a lot of great content and topics and chapters and videos and kind of interactive resources for advisors. related to cybersecurity and taking them through the various steps in the process. So I would say that's a summary of what we do related to cybersecurity. And just to kind of reiterate, any vendors or third parties that we bring into our API program, given that those third parties are going to be accessing the Schwab network, we do a very thorough due diligence process, which includes cybersecurity, technology risk, and due diligence. Chris can talk about all that that we put them through.
I'm sure he's going to.
Yeah. So I'll leave it at that then. Yeah.
So Chris, yeah, I talk to a lot of third-party vendors, and I'm not going to single out Schwab. Just generally speaking, they say when they go through some of these cybersecurity audits, it's not exactly pleasant. I've heard it compared to a colonoscopy. So how do you feel about the due diligence? Do you feel that it's rigorous? Is there anything that you needed to change going through the process? And I guess from the advisor standpoint, how can they be sure that whatever Schwab is doing is enough, and that you feel secure also that you're protecting any data that comes your way?
Well, it's two sides of a coin there. Sure. Is it like a colonoscopy? Yes, it certainly is. But to me, in my mind, it's free consulting. Schwab is coming in and saying, hey, because I'd have to spend $50,000 or $100,000 to get a third party to come in and kind of look at us and tell us whether we're not, we're doing things the way we're supposed to. And here we have a partner that says, not that I'm giving you advice to charge people. I don't want you to do that, but I mean, they come in once that, and we have another custodian that, every other year does, a biannual review. And I know that, Schwab, you kind of go through that, and they actually, to be honest with you, help, smaller vendors make sure that they're looking at what they should be looking at. We actually, we had to go through a pen test, which we do anyway, before we went live. And we actually found a very minor vulnerability in our terminal server firewall that, wouldn't have really affected much. It was a moderate, but, we fixed that. But it just gives you gave us the ability to kind of go through and take a look at stuff. And honestly, it's a great service, because we'd have to pay a lot of money to have somebody else come in and do it. So yes, it is a little bit of a rotor-rooter, but you get to, it needs to be done. But from a cybersecurity standpoint, from where we stand, I mean, we have that. I mean, we feel really good. We have a lot of documentation, and it's interesting if you compare what the various custodians do. A little bit of nuances here and there, but once you've been through, 5 or 6 of them, it's not as bad as it could have been, because you have all the documentation. But it gives us documentation to give to our clients to say, hey, look at what we do, to make sure that we're on target. And then when COVID hit and people started working remotely, it was an interesting thing, because I think that when you're inside the walls of an institution, you kind of say, oh, well, I don't worry about my third party software as much as I used to, because my corporate, policy is going to handle that. But now that I'm going from home, we really had to step up our documentation, and we have like a resource center. We have like our documents are called How We Do It, so here's what, we think you should do going forward. So we have, some good documentation and recommendations on how people should handle their cybersecurity. We don't force them. Some companies force things on people, and there are sometimes that we do and sometimes that we don't, and maybe we should probably force a little bit more. But I think that just as a whole, the whole working from home COVID has really stepped up everybody's cybersecurity awareness and their prevention, simply because, they had to.
Well, one thing Kartik mentioned, which I think is interesting, and this is the part that makes me nervous, is, every advisor also has to do that, or advisory firm also has to do their own due diligence. And I think at the larger end of the spectrum with Schwab's larger clients, they probably have somebody in-house that has the capabilities to do that. But you deal with some smaller firms, Chris. I mean, do you really find that those small to mid-sized firms are doing due diligence, or are they strictly depending on what you and Schwab do?
They are somewhat doing their due diligence. I mean, it's not prevalent. Certainly not all of them, but we are seeing increasing, and it's an interesting thing, because we want to do whatever we can, but at the same time, for a smaller client, we can't spend a week going through our cybersecurity policies with every one of our clients every year because we would, that's all we would be doing. So we have a lot of documentation, and we are getting requests for that more and more and more. But we always provided it for anybody who wanted it. But I think that the smaller companies, smaller advisory firms are outsourcing their compliance, and their compliance are now starting to say, hey, you need to look at your vendors, and you need to make sure that your vendors aren't giving up the store.
Well, my opinion is they're asking for the documentation because their compliance people are telling it's required. Whether they read it and understand it, that's a different story. But that's a discussion for another day. So let's talk a little bit, Kartik, about why Panoramix. We alluded to the fact that it took them a while to get approved by you guys, and now they are. So what was your thought process there, and how did they finally break on through?
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's all about what are our advisors asking for. So we offer integrations with a lot of different third parties, but we have to prioritize on our side. And so when we looked at the list of portfolio management and reporting systems, we wanted to make sure we got the biggest ones tackled, the ones where a lot of our advisors were using it. And so as we made it down the list, Panoramix was a great choice. They were well used by our small to mid-sized advisory firms, and they were well rated. Joel, in fact, in your T3 survey, I believe they're pretty highly rated. So that seemed like a great choice for us to work with Panoramix next and bring them into our integration process. So this is all related to kind of how we approach prioritizing integrations and really going after where advisors are using these tools. And we hope that once we've built this integration with Panoramix and we launch it, it's going to increase usage and adoption even more and make it easier for our advisors to do business both with Panoramix and Schwab in supporting their clients.
Yeah, I guess we have to give Chris, a little pat on the back. I think this is going to be the third year running that they are #1 in satisfaction among all the portfolio management software companies we deal with. So congratulations, Chris. You're doing something right.
Well, thank you. In the landscape that we're in, as Kartik said, and by the way, Joel, thank you for the plug. Anybody listening, 3 years running. Woo. We do pride ourselves on the smaller to mid-sized advisory firm. It's not that we can't do larger ones, but we like the small guys, and I don't think that a lot of people are going after that market. But in general, though, who do they get to custody with? And historically, it's been TD and Schwab to some extent, but then you have some of the smaller broker dealers out there or smaller custodians out there. But TD and Schwab are kind of the two main ones, and so we always said, well, we're really sad to see TD go, and I know we're going to talk about that in a minute here. But thank goodness it was Schwab that they merged with. That's perfect for us because I think that they both have a great philosophy. But just a minor thing, on a tech standpoint, from a vendor, when you want to get data from somebody, especially transactional data, there are only two custodians that offer any history at all, and it's Schwab and TD. They're the only two. If I go to any of the other custodians and I get a data feed set up for an advisor, there's no history. Their performance starts that day, and there's really, and I don't understand that. It is what it is. But Schwab and TD are the two that allow me as a vendor to go out and get the historical data so I can actually move someone over to our system without them losing anything. Whereas, if you're coming from one of the other custodians, it's like, well, we're starting from scratch and it's kind of a tough to move over. So we're very excited. And also, the Schwab TD merger gives us the ability to kind of focus on one rather than two interfaces, because we are, when we start talking about the roadmap, I'm going to start telling you some of the stuff we're going to be utilizing these APIs for in the next year, and we're really excited about it. So Schwab to us is going to be our custodian of choice.
Wow. So let's talk a little bit about the merger, Kartik. What's going on? What are the transition plans? How's the conversion going, if it's going already? And sort of what's the roadmap for the next year or two?
Well, we're going to be very busy. So ever since we announced the closing in October of the TD Ameritrade acquisition, we announced that it's going to take 18 to 36 months to really go to one broker dealer system and one set of platforms. So that's still the range of dates that we're providing. So it's going to be a while before advisors are really going to see a big change where they're going to be moving on to one platform. So for now, it's business as usual for advisors. They continue to use the TD Ameritrade of AO1, use Schwab Advisor Center if they're on the Schwab side. But behind the scenes, we're actively working on building what we're really calling the best of both worlds. So TD Ameritrade had some great capabilities like iRebal, ThinkPipes, and some great capabilities within AO1. So we're going to take some of those great tools and capabilities they offer and build it on top of the Schwab Advisor Center platform. But it's not going to be the same Schwab Advisor Center. It's going to have lots of great capability that we're bringing on from the VAO platform, VAO1 platform. We're taking a similar approach for third-party integrations as well. So we have evaluated TD Ameritrade's API offerings, compared those offerings with Schwab's own API offerings, and we're actually very, very close. It's a lot of the same capabilities being offered, but we noticed there was a couple of areas where TD Ameritrade offered certain things, and then there's also Schwab offered certain things that TD Ameritrade didn't. So again, we're taking that best of both worlds approach here. So we're identifying any of the gaps that exist where, you know, Schwab's APIs doesn't have what TD Ameritrade does, and where there's some usage by advisors, and we're plugging those gaps. And that means we're building new APIs as well as closing any gaps with some existing APIs. And so that's the process that we're going to be working on. We're in the middle of this. We've started working on this, and we'll continue working on this as we lead up to that broker-dealer consolidation, which is going to be, you know, quite a while away, but it's going to come up sooner than we know.
So, Chris, what about from your side? I mean, right now you talked about some of the advantages of consolidating, but there's got to be some challenges for you guys as well, making the transition. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yes. So we are cautiously optimistic that everything's going to go well. You know, we have 75% of our book right now is with TD, and so 75% of our clients are going to be moved over a weekend, and that's a little scary. But what I think is fantastic is, like, what was it, like 3 weeks ago, Kartik, 4 weeks ago, we had the combined Schwab TD sort of tech summit, and a lot of the conversation went around on the 2 days was around the merger, but you're listening to what we're saying. And so, you know, hey, you know, has anybody been through this with anybody else, and what kind of things did you see? And we get some input into that, and actually just had some emails back and forth with your team about symbols and possible changes between those, because we have been through this stuff and they're listening. So you know, the happy path is that, you know, we're going to all have all hands on deck over a weekend, and we're all going to be sitting there biting our nails, and Monday's going to come around and we're going to say, okay, well, we're good to go. And I think that it's not going to be exactly that, but I think it'll be close, because they're really putting the time and effort into that. So certainly our advisors ask us all the time, and we don't know a ton, although we do know that I think we're going to get there. I think that the effort is being put in to get us where we need to go. And I think that's great. But I think what you said, Kartik, is true, that it's going to be here before you know it. We're going to blink of an eye, and all of a sudden that weekend's coming up. So got that to look forward to.
Yeah, I'm sure you're looking forward to it. Finally, let's talk a little bit about roadmaps. So, Kartik, what can you tell us about what's coming up internally, as well as any new things on the horizon for vendor technology?
Yeah, sure. A lot of it is going to be focused on bridging the gaps, closing any of the gaps. We're continuing to invest in our own platforms, independent of any of these TD Ameritrade gaps as well. So, you know, a couple of things I'll mention. We continue to build out and enhance our digital account open capability. So a couple of years ago, we announced our digital account open tool, which is really an end-to-end digital process for opening accounts. And so, you know, it involves a fully web-based digital experience, not just for the advisor, but for their end client. It's all done through an electronic authorization process, and it's all processed electronically on Schwab's side as well. So we took the whole account open process for what could take, you know, hours or even days to just minutes in this digital account process. So we're going to continue to enhance that by adding more and more account types supported for this digital account process, as well as ancillary functions that are part of an account open. like transferring assets or setting up money links and those kinds of capabilities. So lots of enhancements coming to our account open as well as onboarding capabilities. We're also going to be busy integrating iRebal and ThinkPipes. These are the great capabilities that TD Ameritrade offered their advisors. We're going to be bringing those in, so that's all part of our roadmap. And then there's also enhancements to other critical functionality when it comes to advisor workflows, like money movement capabilities. And our North Star is really, how can we make it low touch and fully digital and safe and secure? So that's our guiding principle, and so we're investing quite a bit in enhancing the account open, money movement, and all these account maintenance tasks as well. On the integration and API front, we've got some exciting capabilities on our roadmap as well. Coming very soon, within a week or so, we're hoping, is we're going to launch our status API. And really what this means is it's kind of like that Amazon status, right? When you pull up the app, it tells you exactly where things are. It's similar to that, where instead of an advisor going into Schwab Advisor Center to see, what's the status of that account open, or that wire that I sent, or the money movement, they can now get the status within the third-party tools that they're using. Now, whether it's a CRM system or a portfolio management system, the advisor can just click on a client record or go to the status tab in their third party and see exactly what is the up-to-date status, and if any action is needed by the advisor, because it could say, hey, we're stuck on the Schwab side, we need this document from the advisor. They'd be able to get that transparent status via the API. We're also working, and this is probably great news for Chris and our other third-party partners, is enhancing our developer portal and the developer experience. So we want to make it, at the end of the day, easy for Chris and others like him to work with us in our APIs. We don't want to make it hard for them to look through documentation, figure out what to build, how to build it. So we're enhancing our entire developer portal and the ability for them to build to our APIs. So that's something that's, it's not going to be directly advisor facing, but advisors are going to benefit because integrations are going to be made available faster to them. Another thing on our roadmap we're excited about is, so we know there's this huge proliferation of end client portals out there. So there's so many different end client portals, whether it's the PMS system, portfolio management system offering it, or the financial planning system, maybe there's a standalone end client portal. At the end of the day, we know that there's a lot of different tools, and advisors want to simplify that for their clients and direct them to maybe one end client portal. So what we're doing is offering a seamless connection point, a single sign-on between popular end client portals into Schwab's end client portal, which is Schwab Alliance. So an advisor would be able to, with just a click, direct their end clients to go from a third-party client portal into Alliance, Schwab Alliance, if they want to access documents or tax statements, or even complete a account authorization for opening a new account. So those are the kinds of capabilities that will be available via this single sign-on connection. This way, the client doesn't have to kind of remember their Schwab Alliance passwords all the time, and then if they need to access that. So, because we know that remembering too many passwords is always a painful experience for clients.
That sounds awesome.
A couple of other, and then just to finish up, a couple of other things we're doing is just enhancing our APIs when it comes to some of the move money capabilities, as well as building new APIs for trading and iRebal. And these are all based on gaps that we identified with TD Ameritrade. So we're building some of these new APIs to kind of close out any remaining gaps there. So that's our roadmap. A lot of work ahead of us, but we're pretty excited to start releasing a lot of these great capabilities to advisors.
Sounds like you're going to be busy. So what about you, Chris? I know you have a pretty robust roadmap for the next 6 to 9 months. What's going on?
We do. To kind of talk about the Schwab experience first. For us, the big thing was getting through on the Schwab API, getting through all the vetting and just the initial connections and everything else. And so we have that. And so we are going to be, the next thing we're going to do in phase 2 is we're going to be using the notifications that you're talking about and the money movement. But we're also going to go with the trading API, which is something that we have kind of stayed away from. With Panoramix, we always say we're billing and performance, and that's not what we don't do anything else. But we are going to start looking at doing some trading, and it's not, we're not going to be a full rebalancing system, but we're going to have a trading platform through Schwab for people who are with Schwab. And so that is I think, going to be kind of fantastic, because it brings us into the next level of, more of an all-in-one versus just billing and performance, because it allows us to do actually the trading. And so because of the integration that we just completed with Schwab, we're going to be able to do that. So we're excited about that. We are actually going through and doing some more stuff for GIPS compliance and composites. Prior in Panoramix, we've always had the ability to do that, but we're putting some more structure around accounts flowing in and out of composites for GIPS compliance purposes, which makes some people happy and some people don't care. We've never really, our philosophy has always been to integrate with anybody on anything, whoever, what do you want to do? We'll integrate with those people. But, we really need to put a little bit more tight process around a couple of things. And one of those is going to be financial planning, where we're actually going to have some goal tracking inside Panoramix, and so do some rudimentary goal tracking, and we can do some, Monte Carlo type analysis. Not a full financial planning, but then the ability, because we have that goal section, to pull in the financial planning statuses and things from other financial planning software. So, kind of all that is going to, give us what we're going to call a higher level of Panoramix, that we're going to announce some of that stuff at your conference, Joel, in September. But so that's kind of what we have, big picture.
Lots to look forward to. All right, before we close out, any final comments, Kartik? Anything I didn't ask you that you'd like to get out there?
Joel, I think you covered quite a lot. I enjoyed the discussion and covered some great topics. So again, we're looking forward to welcoming Panoramix and having them launch their integration to advisors. Looking forward to kind of seeing the reception and what feedback is from advisors. We're always looking to bring new partners on board, as well as improve existing integration. So definitely looking forward to that. So otherwise, thanks for having me, and it's definitely an enjoyable conversation.
Thanks for being here. Chris, you get the last word.
Well, we are, the Schwab TD merger for us is, it's a plus and a minus, it's the yin and the yang. I think Garth Brooks does one of these things, blessing and a curse. But we are embracing the fact that we actually can focus on one, platform versus two. So that's kind of exciting for us, which I think we talked about, and very much looking forward to getting together in live again at some point. So at least I know for a fact it's going to be at the latest at September at your conference, Joel. We're certainly going there, but it'll be nice to kind of get back out and see people face to face.
Well, gentlemen, thank you both. It's really been a pleasure. If I don't see you before, I look forward to seeing you in Denton, Texas at T3, September 27th through October 1st. And thank you all for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.